Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Good evening and welcome to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. Belgian prosecutors charge 4 persons over European Union bribery allegations. Serbian President Alexander Vučić meets with Security Council amidst tensions with Kosovo. 3 persons killed as gunmen attack hotel in central Kabul. My name is Tunde Ido. Belgian prosecutors have charged 4 people over allegedly receiving money and gifts from a Gulf state to influence decisions in the European Parliament. In a statement, prosecutors said 6 people were initially detained, but 4 have been charged and 2 have been released. Prosecutors revealed that 16 houses were searched and 600,000 euros were seized in Brussels on Friday as part of investigation into money laundering and corruption. However, the European Union Foreign Affairs Chief, Josep Borrell, said on Monday that the news is disturbing. Borrell said the investigation did not involve anyone from the EU's diplomatic service, adding that there is nothing and no one being referred to neither from the External Action Service nor from the delegations.
Certainly, the news are very worrisome, very, very worrisome. We are facing some events, some facts that certainly worries me as a former president of the European Parliament also.
The European Commission has said the European Union has secured enough gas for this winter but could face a gas shortage next year if Russia further cuts supplies. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen revealed this in a press conference citing data from the International Energy Agency due to be published. She disclosed that despite the action that have been taken, the Union might still face a gap of up to 30 billion cubic meters of gas next year. She added that the European Union will need to review its budget and consider launching a new fund for additional energy investment to wean countries off Russian gas.
Russia indeed has cut its pipeline supplies by 80% if you compare September this year to September last year, 80%. And we all know that these pipeline gas cuts have added unprecedented pressure on the global energy markets with severe knock-on effects on Europe's energy system. The result of all these actions is that we are safe for this winter. Russia's blackmail has failed.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin will not hold his annual end-of-year news conference this year. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said there will not be a news conference before the new year. He gave no reason for the break with tradition, but added that Putin regularly speaks to the press, including on foreign visits. Still staying in Russia, the body of a Zambian student, Lemikani Nyirenda, who died while fighting in Ukraine, has arrived Zambia. It was reported that a wide glass panel hearse of the container holding the body arrived on the tarmac of the Lusaka airport where grieving relatives gathered. Lemikani Nyirenda died in September, but Russian officials only informed Zambian authorities last month. The family spokesperson, Dr. Ayan Banda, in a statement, said the body will be given to the family for burial after a postmortem has been completed. Zambian Foreign Affairs Minister Stanley Kakubo had earlier said that the student was pardoned from serving his 9-year sentence of drug offenses to go and fight in Ukraine.
Burial and memorial service formalities shall only, I repeat, shall only commence upon completion of the aforementioned mandatory, I repeat, mandatory statutory procedures.
Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić has met with the country's National Security Council as tensions rise in Kosovo between the government and ethnic Serbs. On Saturday, a stun grenade was thrown at EU police in North Kosovo, where Serbs form a majority and local police exchange fire with unknown groups. Kosovo, which has an overwhelmingly ethnic Albanian majority, broke away from Serbia after a war in 1998 to 1999, but Serbia has refused to recognize Kosovo as an independent state. NATO, which has peacekeeping troops in Kosovo, called on all parties to avoid provocations. The European Union also warned that the body will not tolerate attacks on EU police or criminal acts. The latest unrest was triggered by the arrest of a Serb former police officer on Saturday. 3 women, including a friend of Italy's prime minister, were killed when a man opened fire at a cafe in Rome, injuring 4 other people. Those inside were meeting as part of a local bloc's residents committee. Mayor of Rome, Roberto Gualtieri, described the shooting as a grave episode of violence and said he will attend an emergency meeting today. A 57-year-old suspect is in custody. Report says he has a history of disputes with some of the committee's board. French President Emmanuel Macron has made a first assessment of the work of the National Council of Refondation, CNR. The French president, who chaired the second plenary session of the CNR, said the CNR is a concrete plan of action and transformation. President Macron also announced that the presentation of the pension reform, initially scheduled for 15th December, has been postponed to 10th of January 2023. A CNR reform tool, touted as another way of governing through consultation, has struggled to establish itself in the French political scene. Heavy snowfall has blanketed part of the United Kingdom, disrupting airports, train networks, and roads, while 2 coal plants have been put on standby in case of a power crunch. Parts of London's underground network were suspended or faced delays today, while motorways were gridlocked due to the snow. The Meteorological Office issued a yellow weather warning for snow and ice in London and southeast England, with ice and fog warnings in other parts of England and the whole of Northern Ireland. Meanwhile, the Britain's National Grid issued a notification to prepare 2 winter contingency coal plants. According to the power grid operator, the measure is to give the public confidence in the energy supply, adding it was not confirmed if the plants will be needed, but they will be ready. British nurses will go on strike this week, hitting already stretched hospitals and increasing pressure on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to quell the biggest wave of industrial action to hit the country in decades. The walkout comes as strikes cripple the rail network and postal service, airports brace for disruption, and junior doctors, midwives, and teachers prepare to ballot, threatening to further jam up an economy that is likely already in recession. Strikes are due to take place almost every day for the rest of the month. Across a range of sectors, unions are seeking double-digit pay rise to keep pace with inflation that hit 11.1% in October, the highest in 41 years. But the government has so far refused to budge on pay and is instead looking to tighten laws to stop strike. People queued outside fever clinics at Chinese hospitals for COVID-19 checks today, a new sign of the rapid spread of symptoms after authorities began dismantling an apparatus used to surveil residents and curtail movements. 3 years into the pandemic, China is acting to align with the world that has largely reopened to live with COVID, making a major policy change last Wednesday after unprecedented protests. It has dropped mandatory testing prior to entering a public event, stopped quarantine, and the country will also deactivate a state-mandated mobile app used to track the travel history of a population of 1.4 billion people. You're watching Spring Global News on Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after this break.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you need a sports show that can walk the walk and talk the talk.
On this show, we answer all your sporting questions. The whens, the whys, the wheres, and even the what-ifs. Sports Spring is that show that will give you that new lease of life you've been looking for in sport journalism. Join me, Joseph Atewe,
And your sports Amazon, Nengi Ernest.
on this station, Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on Star Times.
Let's talk sports. Let's speak the most universal language of the world.
You're welcome back, and you're still watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Into other news, at least 3 attackers have been killed by security forces in Afghanistan after armed men opened fire inside a hotel in central Kabul popular with Chinese nationals. A spokesperson for the Taliban-run administration, Zabihullah Mujahid, said the attack has now ended and no foreigners were killed. He disclosed that 2 of the foreigners were injured while trying to escape the attack by jumping from the hotel balcony. Residents of the area reported hearing a powerful explosion followed by gunfire. The attack was carried out at a building where Chinese and other foreigners usually stay. Israeli forces have killed a 16-year-old Palestinian youth during a military raid on the city of Jenin in the northern occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Health Ministry identified the young person as Jana Majidi Zakarene and announced her killing shortly after midnight today. The ministry said Zakarene was standing on the roof of her home when she was shot dead, adding that she was shot in the head. Meanwhile, The Israeli military, in a statement, said it was aware of the allegation of a Palestinian female killing and was looking into the matter. The military stated that confrontations with Palestinian youths and clashes with Palestinian fighters broke out when the Israeli army was carrying out a raid in Jenin. Iran has imposed new sanctions on individuals and entities in the European Union and the United Kingdom in response to the human rights sanctions and comments on the country's ongoing protests. The Iranian Foreign Ministry announced sanctions on 9 entities and 23 individuals, including media institutions, a military base, and current and former politicians this morning. Several of the sanctions on EU and UK institutions and officials appeared to be related to the January 2020 assassination of Iran's top general Qasem Soleimani in Iraq's capital, Baghdad. Still in Iran, Iran has carried out its second execution linked to the nearly 3-month wave of anti-government protests. The country's judiciary said Majid Reza was hanged in the city of Mashhad. He was convicted of stabbing and killing 2 members of the security forces. The first execution linked to the protest took place last Thursday when Mohsen Shekari was hanged, triggering widespread condemnation. The current protests were triggered by the death of Masha Amini, a 22-year-old woman who was detained by the country's morality police in September and died while in custody. She was held for allegedly wearing her hijab improperly. The unrest, which began in the capital, Tehran, where Ms. Amani died, has spread to some 160 cities in all of Iran's 31 provinces. An airport in Peru has been closed and 2 people have been killed in violent protests. Pictures on social media showed smoke rising from Andalaas Airport in the south of the country. The Transport Ministry said in a statement that 50 police officers and workers were surrounded by demonstrators at the airport. Protests over the impeachment of President Pedro Castillo have continued in the capital, Lima. Police fired tear gas yesterday to disperse demonstrators in the city. And in business news, Nestle has announced it will invest $42.8 million in launching a new production facility in western Ukraine. In a statement, Nestle Chief Executive Officer for Southeastern Europe market, Alessandro Zanelli, said this was an important move for the company, taken in a very challenging time for the country. Zanelli said the company aims to create a food and culinary hub, ensuring incremental jobs and serving the needs of Ukrainian and all European citizens with high-quality products. Nestle is one of the few international companies to announce new investment in Ukraine since Russia invaded the country in February. Twitter paid-for verification feature is rolling out once again today after it was paused last month due to impersonators. It is still $8 per month, but there is now an increased fee of $11 for those using the Twitter app on app devices. Twitter owner Elon Musk has previously said in tweet that the residents that he resents the commission's fee Apple charge on its app purchase. Twitter Blue additional feature include an edit button. And to the exciting world of sports, Croatia coach Zlatko Dalic says he feels happy and proud after beating Brazil to reach the World Cup semi-finals, but amidst the celebrations are already over as the team prepares to face Argentina. Dalic disclosed this in his pre-game press conference, adding that his side will pay most attention on how to stop Argentina captain Lionel Messi. He stated that his players need to close spaces and stop the Paris Saint-Germain superstar from receiving the ball. Croatia, who defeated Brazil on penalties, will take on the current Copa America champions Argentina in the first semi-final game at the Lusail Iconic Stadium on Tuesday. Still talking World Cup, Spanish referee Antonio Mateo Lahoz has been sent home from this year's World Cup in Qatar following criticism of his officiating in the quarter-final clash between Argentina and the Netherlands on Saturday. According to reports, there were huge complaints sent the way of the official by several players, including Messi, despite Argentina running out victorious on penalties. It will be recalled that Lahoz issued 17 yellow cards during the match, with defender Denzel Dumfries also receiving his marching orders despite the game having already ended. Before we end Spring Global, here is a recap of our top stories. Belgian prosecutors have charged 4 people over allegedly receiving money and gifts from a Gulf state to influence decisions in European Parliament. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić has met with the country's National Security Council as tensions rise in Kosovo between the government and ethnic Serbs. At least 3 attackers have been killed by security forces in Afghanistan after armed men opened fire inside a hotel in central Kabul, popular with Chinese nationals. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. Thank you for watching. I am Sunday Idowu. Good evening.
Abraham Lincoln had a unique, indomitable courage to aspire for his goal. He had eyes on the American presidency, which he contested several times but failed. He remained undaunted until he was